Go ahead.
I got some updates. I got some updates.
Hey.
And for the format, we're going to take the format here. So I'm just going to, like those of you that are watching this, I'm just going to talk to Dave as if you were, as if the people watching this were you, Dave. And but it's really, I'm really doing this for the benefit of other people. And we have some specific things that we would like help with. And it's been a long time since we've been able to ask for specific things, but I'm going to try. So let's see, do you have notes going? Do I need to, let
Do.
me, well, I'll talk you that. Open up an Etherpad, and we'll try to do this kind of right. It only takes someone getting really sick and leaving the project for us to get our act together. Okay, so here's some stuff that's been going on. So we have months ago I have the Harmony thing, the Harmony Wiki, Bugzilla Harmony. We talked a little bit about that. It's a stupid name, but really what it is bugzilla.mozilla.org is quite good. Has a lot of stuff going into it. There's a lot of commits. Actually, over the last 30 days, there have been more than 61 commits to that repo. So it's safe to say that that's pretty active. 11 different people doing that. So there's a lot of activity. But meanwhile, we have the situation of the master branch hasn't had a release in a really long time. Although we did just have a security release for everything. So if you are seeing this and that's surprising to you, please update. It was a kind of surprising problem, but yeah. So anyway, update. But what I see us needing to do as a project, there's two things that we need to do. We need to have updates to the 5.0 branch. There's a couple of more things that can go out that have come to my attention. So we need to be able to do another release of like 5.05 in short order. And in that release, I want to do it faster because currently a release takes my coworker DKL, a different Dave, about a day to do. And I think that we can do better release. I think that people will be better served by more frequent releases, all with in mind the same stability things that we try to do. So we can't do anything super new and fancy in the 5.0 branch, but we can patch things that need to be patched. Chief on my mind here is there's some memory leak stuff that I fixed 2 years ago in BMO that could be reasonably backported to the 5.0 branch and would have a real impact on people. There's a guy with the IRC nick of Hendry in the Bugzilla channel who's been working on upgrading to the 5.0 series, and I like things come up like, oh, it's using a lot of memory, and like that's fixed. That's a fixed problem, and it's not even a very big fix, so we can get that going. So I can plan on continuing there be releases for the 5 series. What I have definitely decided is that the master branch for the Bugzilla repo is a dead end. I'm not able to continue that. It's not to say that someone else might not be able to, but since we've got me and a few other people, what we can do is focus on stability of the 5.0 series and the new stuff. And the new stuff is a copy of BMO. And in effect, I think that the Harmony thing will be more stable because BMO tends to be more stable. Because if I screw up, then a whole bunch of Firefox developers get mad at me. So I try not to screw up very often. Anyway, so with that in mind, one of the things that Jerv had said he wanted, and this is a very reasonable ask, is like a clear roadmap. So what I did is on the Harmony repository and in the meeting notes for this, I'll make sure we have a link on the GitHub Harmony thing, which is github.com/Bugzilla/Harmony. There's a wiki, and on that wiki, we put together some content. Kohei, who I should have mentioned and had him join here, but I think, oh, maybe he needs a link. If he's around, let me check and see if he's around in the channel asking for a link while I'm just talking. He's not, so that's fine. But anyway, he's done a lot of work already that we should be jumping on. So there's 2 bits here. We have also for questions about what this whole change in pace, which is I figure what this Harmony thing is, it's a change in pace for the project and a change of direction. All the little questions about that are in a little page called Guiding Principles, but it's super boring. You don't need to read that. But what we need help with, and what I'm beating around bushes, we have a Bugzilla 6 UX roadmap. So if you are or know someone that likes doing front-endy stuff and wants to use, this is, I think, a draw to donating your time for free to something, you can write JavaScript ES6 stuff without any kind of compatibility concerns. By that, I mean we don't support anything older than Edge. So it's like only new browsers. Which that means is that in BMO Harmony, or sorry, in BMO and in Bugzilla Harmony, you get to use fresh new JavaScript. You get to use the fetch API. You get to use arrow functions. So if you really like JavaScript and you want to just have the experience of working on a web app where you just get to write modern JavaScript and you don't have to necessarily use Babel or anything like that, then that's the kind of stuff we need. And in this UX roadmap, there are lots of uncompleted tasks. Some of these are things that only the Bugzilla UX person, Kohei, will be able to do, but some of these are things where you could just go, I would like to work on this, and you could join the Bugzilla channel, #Bugzilla on irc.mozilla.org, and ping myself or Kohei about how do I do one of these things, and we'll start working out like what bugs need to be followed, because these are high level things. They're not individual bugs. We need help with individual things too, but we also need people that are interested in taking some initiative. It's for UX, it's very hard to have opinions, so I have delegated opinions to Kohei. So if you have an opinion about UX that's different than what's expressed here, then you can argue that point with Kohei. And if he changes his mind, that's good. But whatever he says as far as UX is pretty much the decision. I mean, just Dave and I may overrule that in particular cases if it's really egregious. But for the most part, his opinion on UX is really sound, and he knows what he's talking about. So that is kind of liberating because we don't have to continue to discuss the color of the bike shed. It's whatever color Kohei wants it to be. So anyway, there's a number of items here. There's site-wide redesign. Some of these should be marked as done. Oh no, there's a site-wide redesign that's it's a huge task and a huge thing that's still being thought of. But there are other things. Improving the sign-in experiences in particular is something that could be done. There are also lots of error messages. I have wanted to copy the wording that we use in Firefox for error messages and copy that tone to make them more understandable. A real problem that we actually have is we have error messages that are normal. That is, error messages are things that you shouldn't be able to do, but you might not know. Like, I don't know, I can't think of it, like trying to edit a bug and you don't have the right permissions. And many of these error messages either don't give you enough information or they have the wrong kind of tone that are off-putting. It's a UX thing. So even if you just are not good at English, not good at JavaScript, but you are good at English or another language, because we need to fix these in translations too. I want to make the feel of the messages that you get from the system be more reasonable and easier to understand. So anyway, that's all UX, and I'm not really good at that, as is probably evident, but that is an entire set of things that we need done in UX. So what I have contributed and what I will now talk in a little bit more detail is and by the way, we need to have most of these or many of these things done by August. Like that's getting really close, and I would really like to have a nice 6.0 release that looks really nice and is really effective and easy to install, and so on. So here's what we have under Bugzilla 6 backend roadmap. Some of these things are done. I'll let Just Dave to open it. So the top of the thing is PSGI support. This is something that we had mostly working in the master branch, but it's now better in the Harmony branch, Harmony repo. Like this, you could check out the Harmony master branch right now and run PSGI, although there are still some issues that need to be worked out. Things that would break in master but do work now are, it's kind of complicated to understand, but basically we weren't loading CGI compile early enough. So any code that was compiled by the Perl interpreter prior to that being loaded, if it called to exit as code that used to run in a CGI environment is wont to do, it would cause the entire server to stop. This was seemingly random. You would be using it running under PSGI, and then all of a sudden the process would be gone. You would think that it would be dying from some sort of exception or something, and you would strace it, which is something I did, or you run GDB on it, various things, and try to figure out why is it crashing, and you wouldn't know. And it turns out that you just need to load CGI compile really early, and then that's fine. There were some other things that were very subtle that you would not notice right away, but there's a functionality that is supposed to run before every request, and that code was running in an environment outside of the faked CGI environment and was also scrubbed. So all of those things were fixed. But what I need help with this PSGI support is, well, for one thing, we're still using CGI PM. every time I talk to a Perl person and they find out we're using CGI-PM, including the person that maintains CGI-PM, the response is pretty much, please stop doing that. So maybe we should look at, when you're running under Plaque, that the Bugzilla CGI object is really a Plaque request object that just has the right methods. I think most of the methods have similar names anyway, like params and URL params and send cookie, or send cookie is probably different, but still. So someone that wants to work on back-end stuff and Perl, we could really use help with figuring out how to replace the Plaque request, replace the CGI object with a Plaque request object when running under PSGI mode. And that's I know from looking at the edges of that problem that it's possible, and I haven't delved deep into it because I haven't had time. But if someone wants to work on that, I would definitely be available to answer questions and talk about it. Moving along, I also need to, before this can be really, really stable, I need to get this PSGI code vetted against DMO itself, which is something that's on me and something I can do. So we'll skip over that. But this indirectly helps me because I do not want to be running under mod Perl for very long in 2018. Like after 2018, I would like to not rely on mod Perl. That would make my life a lot better. It would make anyone who wants to run Bugzilla's life a lot better too. And then this is a testing thing that doesn't necessarily need Perl help, but it would be really cool if we could, in our testing suite now, spider every possible URL against the mod Perl backend, save the responses to that, and then compare that to the Plaque-based thing to make sure that we're handling every path in the same way. And this doesn't have to be in any particular language. It's just something that's very difficult to do. Like, it's not even difficult. It's just something that will take actual amounts of work in the hours range of checking that it does this work. So moving along, other things we need to do is support UX, which I have been working on, although they're not complete. We need Markdown support. I'm working on making a version of Markdown that is exactly the same code that GitHub is using. Well, see, GitHub's using a C library, so I'm trying to make a Perl binding to their C library to render comments as Markdown in exactly the way that they would be rendered on GitHub, which I think many users would appreciate because there are subtle differences in between standard Markdown and what GitHub does. And we can just use their code since it's available, and we just have to bind it to C. And how hard is that? It's actually a little bit hard. It's taken me spent about 4 days, 2 different weekends working on it. So someone that wants to work with me on that would be cool too. Other things, we need to use APIs, and that's going to be easier very soon because as I announced when I gave a talk at FOSDEM about Bugzilla's packaging stuff, I think we're going to depend on Modulicious, and we're going to write new functionality, not necessarily replace anything old yet, but be able to write new functionality using Modulicious. I think when I've shown samples of this to Kohei and some other front-end people, they actually get excited because it makes the idea of adding an API to Bugzilla be something that you could reasonably do in like an hour instead of something that's significantly more of an investment. So those are tasks, and they're supporting UX. So we have so far there's 2 big areas. If you're listening to this, PSGI support and supporting UX. Moving down, this is something that is actively being worked on by someone that's not me right now. Like, this is great, parts of this. So performance stuff, preload this is stuff that's already landed in BMO and is already in the Harmony repo, which is better than the Bugzilla master branch, really better than any existing version of Bugzilla other than the code that's on BMO. All templates are loaded in memory. Under Mod Pro, we still support htaccess files, but they don't trigger a stat for every request, which is a significant performance improvement. It's actually even more significant after the whole Spectre thing because we perform drastically fewer syscalls, which is good, and that's already there. So, and this is mostly done replacing. So Bugzilla objects has ID and name methods for everything that we pull out of the database. This is basically our in-house ORM. And so on a large install with many products, the ID methods and name methods will be called hundreds of thousands of times. So there's a trick where you can have those methods be implemented using XS, which is which is Perl's interface to C. It makes it much faster, and the savings on that is somewhere in the, for larger requests, is up to like 100 milliseconds per request, which I think in some cases that's, at least for the data sets I'm dealing with, that's 1/4 the time. So we're saving 1/4 of the amount of time a request takes by doing that. So that's really good. That's pretty much done. Meanwhile, we have open issues that are not solved of using HTML escape to escape HTML. HTML escape is a CPAN module that's written in C that is drastically faster at escaping HTML than our existing thing. This saves, I forget, if you are on the wiki and you click that link, there's details of how fast, much faster that makes it. I have a question that someone could answer that knows about bidirectional text and stuff, because right now we are stripping out bidirectional text markers and then doing HTML escaping. And if I can avoid doing that, it'll be much faster, but I don't know the circumstances that we originally started stripping those characters. So I really need to talk to someone that knows about bidirectional text and has time to talk to me. So if you know anyone and would like to, I would, you could just get someone to comment on that pull request. That would be really useful, or anything. The next thing, which is kind of done, but I don't know how to proceed on, is using serial, which is a serialization format that's really fast to store our schema. So anyone watching this that doesn't deal with Bugzilla guts, we have our own representation of a database schema that's stored in the database in a string, and that string is currently formatted as a Perl data structure using dumper, and it's loaded with a thing called safe, which is like a compartmentalized Perl interpreter. Anyway, loading that is really slow. We also do it twice per request, and switching the serial makes it really fast. But what I don't understand enough of right now is how to force our ORM. And so there's not like, there are not experts for this, by the way. Like, this is our code that we should know. I should know more how it works, but I don't. So we have an ORM, and it doesn't update the definition in the table unless you change the schema, and or I need to figure out some way of forcing it to migrate the data. What I'm talking about in this is actually in the VUG and pull request for that feature. But if we get that, that's a huge performance win. And but I haven't had time to figure out how to do that. So it's literally sitting there for someone to help. Now, the part where someone is also actually actively working on this is an area that is of concern to myself, the people that I've been talking with from the Arch Linux community, and our volunteer contributor who's been helping me out for a couple of weeks now, that I met at FOSDEM. But in short, we need to make
do we just lose Dylan? I think we just lost Dylan.
Yeah,
oh, there you just came back. Okay.
Yeah, my Wi-Fi on this laptop is kind of messed up. So installation is what I'm talking about now. I want to get rid of check setup. It's not just I want to get rid of check setup. It's that people that are trying out and using Bugzilla, even for the first time, think that it's a bit weird. It's doing too many things. I want to take the things that it's doing and make them separate concerns. And
be nice to some extent, from a web page on the first time you load the thing too.
You could do so. Yeah, what we need to do is we need to be able to have it. You need database connection parameters. So it needs to set up the configuration. It needs to not handle the Perl dependency stuff. That should be handled a layer up above it, like by the makefile.pl. That won't pretty much already work. So I'm having Upasna, who's been helping out with, who's been working on this, figure out how to basically make check setup be unconcerned with dependencies. That's step one. Step two is make check setup do the configuration stuff that it does against the answers file. I basically, maybe I'm not getting rid of check setup is not the right way of phrasing this. I would like check setup to handle configuration of the local config file and the data params file and not do anything else. Because if you, and I've done this part already, if you take out the database migration code and run it independently of the rest of check setup, other problems begin disappearing. What are the other problems? Well, right now, I had set as a goal in this next section, upgrading from all previous versions. When you naively try doing this with check setup and all of the customizations that are in the Harmony branch, it just basically doesn't work. And it doesn't work for like a bunch of reasons. So magically, if you remove everything but the database migration stuff, or you take all the database migration stuff and you run it by itself, things start working. And as a result, I'm almost ready to close out the bug that has it so that we migrate from 4.2 to the current database. It's so what I say almost works is now if I extract that code, I've extracted it into a script called migrate database. If I call that script twice, then it works. You get a working install from an old database. And I suspect with a little bit further tweaking, the same will be true from 5.0. And then there's going to be some more stuff that's required to get it to upgrade from the master branch because of some schema changes that are in there that are hard to back out, but still possible. Anyway,
why does it have to be run twice?
The first time there aren't the right columns in like the profiles table or something because the order that the extensions get run in is based on their alphabetical ordering. And I think the way I would like to fix that is to be able to have them define the order that they're going to run the SQL migrations in, maybe, or some kind of. It depends on if I can solve this by being clever or if I can solve this by being dumb. I'm not sure which way I'll choose. Solving it by being clever is probably not what I'm going to do. I'll probably just make it so that it tries twice to migrate the database or something like that. But
or some module dependencies, like say the modules that do other things related to profiles have to have the profile module loaded first or something.
Or we could change the ORM so that the ORM doesn't have to have every field existing when it creates it. Like the ORM could be more forgiving. There's a couple of ways. It's just, and I think that like, I figure that's like one thing, and it's probably the one thing that'll take 80% of the time, but it's like, we get that done and we have a big milestone that I want to done, which is database upgrades from previous versions. Because we are effectively, Bugzilla Harmony is a different product that just happens to be compatible with the other one and shares like 90% of the code. I mean, legitimately, it's still mostly the same code. Most of the time, patches still apply and all of that because I haven't bothered. And at this point, I'm not going to bother doing a massive reformatting of the code. We'll just reformat everything new. Anyway, so I'm not going to add anything else, I think, to this Bugzilla 6 backend roadmap because I think this is quite a lot of stuff, especially with the UX front-end stuff that we need. But I still think that it is possible to get something done by August. So that's kind of the call. If anything on this sounds, basically the way this should work is if someone's looking at this and they see something interesting on this wiki, they can do, any way they feel like communicating that interest, we can break down these things into smaller chunks. Like right now, actually the installation thing is broken down on Bugzilla itself into smaller bugs, and only the smallest parts are being worked on. So it's manageable in terms of complexity. The only area which I think this might grow because it's a bit undefined is the things that we need to do to support the UX roadmap items in the back end are pretty undefined at the moment. So that's a bit of risk. But I think we've got, what is it, 5? There's 5 pillars of things that we need to have done by August. And I think that can be done. I don't want to say this because it may not get less help, but I think that I could probably reasonably do this without any help, and getting any amount of help increases the likelihood of this not failing. So that's good. Also, as an aside, other things that are now in BMO that aren't in regular Bugzilla that now are kind of useful is and have just happened in the last month, is we have support for logging now. Like there's a logging framework, which is mostly stolen. It's a little bit different, but mostly I stole the concepts from what Red Hat had done to their Bugzilla install. I've not seen their code yet, actually, but Red Hat has had log4pro for like the last 10 years. It really helps with debugging problems. You can turn it off, and anytime you're logging something and the logging is turned off, you're only paying a few microseconds of performance. Anyone that's followed along with Bugzilla stuff knows that I care about performance a lot, and using this logging stuff does not hurt performance. And the other thing that's changed is the job queue code now is parallelized. So you can run as many job queue workers as you want arbitrarily. You pass -J to you just pass J to it, and it's the way it works is really elegant, which I I think I'm going to write a blog post about it. It actually feels stupid. I just want to talk about it, but no one's really that interested. But it's really fun the way it works. You can kill each of the job queue workers, and they just happily respawn and start doing stuff. And I'm really excited about it. I didn't want to have to do this, but this is things that our operations new operations team wanted to see in the application. And so they exist now, and I think that they're things that other installs will really benefit from. The logging especially.
That's something
I've
people
used
have wanted
logging
for a long time, actually.
Yeah, I implemented logging, and then I immediately needed to debug this problem with our memcache implementation in the new environment isn't working for some reason. I still don't know why, but I have at least I can do trace level logging and trace each function call and try to figure out what's going wrong. I still don't know, by the way, but having logging support is really cool. So, so what we want, I believe in the past, like previous meeting, we want direction, provide direction for people to help. So if anyone wants to help, I'm trying to provide direction. I will try to provide even more direction. And in particular, when someone, to give you an idea of what it works like, and I don't like pointing out people when they just start helping because it's a lot of pressure. But if you are helping, if you approach me and you want to do a thing and you want more and more specific instructions, as much as time permits, will do that. Like I like providing as much technical detail as I can. The thing that I'm not good at is deciding architectural visions and things like that. I don't think that way. I'm an engineer. I also am good, which is a bad thing to be good at, perhaps. I'm good at legacy software. So I'm all about making the least amount of change for the most amount of effort, or deleting things that we don't need. Like I really like deleting code. I think I'm the first in deleting codes on the GitHub page now. So I evidence that I like deleting code. But architectural grand vision things are not something that I'm good at. But when you want to do a thing, I can tell you how to do that thing probably in ways that don't break everything. So that's where we're at. We have a roadmap on the wiki. Anyone that is interested has edit abilities on there. I will work, and I've started doing this of marking pages on the wiki.mozilla.org wiki as being needed to be deleted. I still want to use that wiki for meetings and stuff. I don't know exactly how to structure that. The reason that I started putting content on the GitHub wiki is because Kohei had written a number of pages about UX in a separate UX repository, and I wanted to effectively bless those and make them official. So those parts of the vision for future UX are now as official as anything can be. So that's the direction that we're going in. And I'm done. I mean, I'm not done. We can still talk, but I'm done monologuing, and I hope that all those things makes people happy.
Yeah, sounds pretty exciting. So it's good to see stuff going like this again. Jay, I got some more information to share. The Bugzilla website, we got that moved over to GitHub Pages finally, so that is, you've probably heard if you've been watching our previous meetings that Mozilla is in the process of moving out of the data center that most of the Bugzilla project related stuff was hosted in. And so this was our actually www.bugzilla.org website was actually hosted within Mozilla's website hosting infrastructure. It wasn't even in the community space under our control. And so this was getting it out of Mozilla's infrastructure. So it's actually on a site that we control the site build and everything on now.
Yep. And we got a patch. I don't know if you noticed, but so the links to the Bulgarian translation of the latest 4.0 version and the latest 5.0 version have been updated. They had been updated a while ago, but the translator actually submitted a change, submitted a pull request, and I approved it within 5 minutes of him doing that. So the link to that translation is now up to date.
Cool.
That's kind of invitation. Like we need to do a lot of work on that, but it's, if you see something that's wrong, you can fix it. And I don't like just doing that. Like I'm going to fix things too. Like it's not all about off-putting onto other people, but The
Yeah.
burden for editing things is real easy now.
And I'll drop the GitHub link for the website in there too, because it's all in GitHub now. So you can fork it and submit your pull request if you think a website should change or something, and we'll look at it and pull it in if we can.
Yep. Very excited. I'm very happy to have, like, I like getting contributions. It makes me feel very happy. So even if you do something like a typo, it's okay. It's good.
Yeah. Fix typos. That's an easy one. And then
It's a good way
the
of
other
getting
thing
involved. It's a good way of being
yeah,
involved.
the other thing that we've got going on with the project infrastructure is we have a group of servers running within Mozilla's Santa Clara data center that, like I mentioned, they're in the process of moving out of that data center. And so we are trying to find new hosting for that stuff. And Mike Hoy has been working with me on that, and we do have a couple leads on hosting for that right now that I'm
Cool.
investigating. And so hopefully we may have something moving on that within the next month or so finally.
Yep. For the Harmony stuff, I plan on setting up a running instance of it in something like Heroku, like in a free plan, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That gets like, and I'm going to have the data in it reset like every month or something like that, but so that people can try it out. A testing site that's specific to our project and not Mozilla's anything. It's almost, I've had it working in Heroku before. There's some stuff with file system writability that needs to change, but I have designs on doing that before the release, before the 6.0 release, or maybe shortly after, so that we'll have like a demo thing. And the cool thing about a Heroku instance of it is you should be able to just copy that, like clone that and make your own copy and start playing with it and not have to figure out a bunch of stuff about setting it up. You know, kind of modern-ish 12 factory sort of stuff.
Okay.
So, yep, things are going pretty well, as good as can be expected. I really hope that in the next meeting to give I hope the next meeting I will be giving you an update of how you can write a new endpoint in Bugzilla using Modulicious. I think that that's something I can reasonably do in a month, given just a couple of weekends to play with it, because project stuff I mostly only work on the weekends. Yeah.
Okay.
We're not. I want to say, like, we're not desperate for help, but I think that it's fun. Like, I think some of these challenges I think are fun. So and I think that in general we're pretty fun to people to interact with. So if you want to interact, go ahead. We're here. And I will also actually. So two things. I'm going to try making promises. Making promises is good for me. So I would like I'd like to be able to talk next month about the Modulicious thing and about how upgrades from 4.2 databases are now part of our CI. So that was the whole goal with the upgrade task, is that we have a CI job, a continuous integration job, that runs the upgrade for every commit, so that you know if you're changing the database that someone upgrading from at least was it 4.2? Yeah, I guess 4.2 still gets a working database. So with any luck, I can prove that. And I realize in that list of tasks, which I'm going to update after this, I say 4.2 and then I jump to 5. I mean 4.2, 4.4, 5.0, and the master branch. Those are the minimum set that need to be upgradable from. There are Bugzilla installs that are still running older versions than that, and those will receive the best of our free support that is possible, which is to say they ask questions in IRC and we try really hard to get it working for them. Really hard has different definitions depending on the time of year and who you're talking to, but in general, I think we help a lot of people that reach out to us.
Yeah.
So,
So if
yeah,
we don't
that's
have
all I
anything
got.
else, I did see somebody else join on video here. If anybody has any questions or anything, comments to add before we end.
Yep.
Otherwise, I guess we're done.
Yep.
So see you all next month or around on IRC or the mailing lists.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I go